Joyride, 1957, a novel of intrigue by J.P. Wasmiller, Chapter 120. It could be one of those. Which one, I would have no clue. It could be just that simple, James said aloud. What could be that simple? A voice said from his left. James jumped what he perceived to be a foot in the air. Oh, nothing. I was just wondering why there were so many cups. The St. Patrick's priest had alerted the St. Mary's priest that he had a visitor. He was a tall man, but very thin, with thin, wispy blonde hair. Well, we like to have enough so that we don't run short during Mass. I see. And why 12? You a Catholic son? The priest quizzed. Kind of, James said sheepishly. Well, then you know Christ had 12 apostles. That is why we choose 12. Interesting, James said, nodding. Does one have more significance than another? The priest took one of the center cups and turned it over. The cup had an inscription on the bottom of the base. It read 1926. This was the first one used in this church at the dedication in 1926. Wow, that's 30 years ago, James said. 31, the priest corrected. Is this the oldest church in Portland? James asked. No, that distinction belongs to St. Patrick's Cathedral up in the Pearl District north of here, the priest said. It was built in 1891. James stared at the ceiling while calculating. That's 66 years ago. I have to go see that one in the morning, he said. Tell me, son, are you a historian? No, I'm just doing some research. Scientific, I guess you could call it. Well, if I can be of any help, let me know, the priest said, not pressing the issue. We have some archival materials in our library, but I'm afraid they are for the most part written in Latin. Father, tell me, when was Portland, the city, founded? I think 1845, but I believe there were settlers here earlier, maybe 10 years or so. This city was the end of the Oregon Trail. The priest was smiling, proud of his own wealth of knowledge regarding his state. Then when Lewis and Clark came through in 1804, there would have been nothing here but the native peoples? Yes, the priest said, somewhat taken aback at James' knowledge. No, there may have been some fur traders. No, I think there would have been some, but farther north, Seattle or Vancouver. Well, thank you so much for your time. James now noticed 2 large vases of cut roses standing on either side of the altar. Beautiful, he said, pointing. Yes, we are very blessed here in the city of roses, the priest said. Well, thank you again. Goodbye, James said, and began walking down the long aisle. Son, would you like to take confession? The priest called after. Thank you, but no, Father. It would take all night, James said. Well, have a good evening. Enjoy your visit to St. Patrick's tomorrow. He waved. James waved back and kept walking. The priest turned and walked into his office, sat down at his desk, and dialed a number. Is Father Rich there? He asked. Would you please put him on? After a minute. Hello? Father Rich speaking. Rich, he was just here. His name is James, a backslidden Catholic if I ever saw one. Yeah, I know, Father Rich said. I think he's on to something. He seemed pretty knowledgeable, and he is visiting your church, St. Patrick's, tomorrow, so he says. Yes, I don't think there's any threat there, but just in case, I will alert our brothers to the south. I think that's where he will head next. If he doesn't, anything here in Portland? Father Rich said. The father from St. Patrick's listened. Yes, I'll call first thing in the morning. Have a good evening, Father Rich said. The priest from St. Mary's hung up the phone and walked back out into the cathedral sanctuary. He stared a long time at the 12 golden cups on the altar. Finally, he said, Can't be. He then dimmed the lights in the cathedral and headed for his room in the rectory. He wasn't sure how well he would sleep this cool fall night in the city he so loved.